Hello, real estate investing fools. You've probably heard me talk about the construction labor issue before. It's a pretty profound problem, and it's also one that has some solutions and some technology-based solutions. So I'm going to dive into that today with Mallorie Brodie and Lauren Lake of Bridgit, which is a startup focused on helping the construction industry maximize profits by taking a people-first approach. So workforce intelligence from Bridgit is designed to take all of that workforce data and turn it into actionable insights that can help organizations figure out this big construction problem. They've raised over $15 million in funding so far. They've worked with Skanska, Balfour Beatty, Ryan Companies, among others. So let's get started. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Well, I saw your interview, Mallorie, about starting Bridgit and doing 500 interviews on construction sites. I loved that origin story, and kind of what did that teach you about how kind of broken construction is in some ways?
Absolutely. So we started that interview process when we were actually in our final year of college. And it all started because there was a massive new business school under development. And we decided one day that we would go onto that site and we would just see if the site team was willing to chat with us to answer some of the questions we had about, where there might be some opportunities to bring some efficiencies to the construction industry. And they really did welcome us with open arms. They gave us a site tour. They answered our questions. At the time, I don't think they expected we were going to go back to their site every single week and ask more questions for the next year. But that really just gave us the confidence to go out there, talk to more site teams, figure out what we could learn. And then we figured that if we talked to enough folks, some trends would really start to emerge about what their biggest challenges and pain points were. We never wanted to be in this position where we were just brainstorming between the two of us, trying to come up with some idea without actually getting out there and talking to our customers.
That makes sense. So how did this happen that you were interested in construction in the first place?
So we both actually have families in the construction industry. So both of our grandparents had construction businesses, and I studied civil engineering. Mallorie studied business. So we had, between our family's history, between my schooling, just on the engineering side, we had some of that construction in our roots. And so when we realized that we had that shared family experience, I think we were interested in that. I had spent some time working on site just as a student throughout my education. And so it was kind of all of those factors together. We decided, let's go and talk to some more people. Let's understand what the problems are. We had a gut feeling that there was a lack of technology just through what we knew about the industry, but we didn't really know what specifically we would end up building. And so that's where those site visits ended up being important, because we were really understanding what the main pain points were so that we could build a product that would make sense.
I love that, because I was talking with another entrepreneur in the construction industry the other day. We were talking about the difference between what construction traditionally has been and the construction job of the future. I feel like the construction job of the future is so much less about hammering nails and so much more about using technology. What are you both seeing on this?
Definitely think we see that data will get used much more frequently. So I think it's been hard before the industry was using a lot of technology solutions to really aggregate that data and have insights to make better decisions. And it is complicated in such a fast-paced environment, so many different stakeholders. But we definitely see that with solutions similar to ours, but really all of them combined together, construction companies really will be able to make much more data-driven decisions as we progress. And I think that will bring a lot of efficiency. So that's, one trend that I definitely see us moving towards.
Yeah, when we first started doing those site visits, we were pitching this idea to people outside the construction industry, just saying, we think we have this potential idea. Maybe we could build technology for the construction world. It really seems like that's an industry that could use more technology. And a lot of people who weren't familiar with the space would always say, oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. Construction isn't going to adopt this type of technology. There's a reason it doesn't exist. And when we went to the sites and actually spoke with people, it was a totally different story. People were super innovative. They wanted to understand what the solutions could be. They wanted to be part of coming up with those solutions. And so it was really exciting for us to see just how innovative those teams are and those companies are. So I think, to Mallorie's point, the data is becoming more and more prevalent because there is more capture of that information now, and mobile devices has been a huge part of that, just getting access to information that wasn't available before. But I think everyone's mindset in the industry is very open-minded and very much towards innovation. So I think it's the acceleration that we're seeing now is going to continue.
Interesting. So do you believe that the construction worker of the future will be doing different things than they're doing right now?
I definitely think we're starting to see that movement towards prefab construction, offsite construction, and I do think that will continue in various places. One of the challenges with construction is so many of the projects are so unique and it's very bespoke in a lot of ways. And so I think there will be challenges for that to enter every part of the industry or to be the right use for every single type of project. But I do think that will be a space that continues to grow in certain sectors for sure.
Excellent. So you had a post on your site that I really liked about diversity and inclusion in construction. It's clear that it's lacking. It's clear it needs to change. How are you working on changing that?
Well, I think within our own team, so when we started our business, neither of us fit the typical tech founder mold. We don't come from software backgrounds. We were two young females in the construction tech space, we're kind of at the intersection of two very male-dominated areas. And so when we started building our team, being already sort of non-traditional founders in that sense, I think we were very open-minded in terms of building our team with really diverse talent. And that doesn't just mean gender diversity or racial diversity, just people from all sorts of different backgrounds, people with different education backgrounds, people from different industries. And I think as we saw our team grow in that way, it's really interesting to see the parallels to how a lot of construction companies are starting to think, where there's more and more teams becoming more innovative with how they do their hiring, especially given the labor shortage that there is today. So looking to tap into outside industries and really attract people from other areas to work in the construction world. So we're seeing diversity is becoming a bigger talking point. For us, our business is all around helping companies build and leverage those teams. And so we're really excited to see how our product can help with that in the future.
Interesting, because I think that labor problem is something we were talking about before the pandemic. It's been sort of this aging of the construction worker that we've been hearing about for a long time. I've seen different programs at colleges trying to, get people back into the trades, but I feel like the diversity and inclusion aspect of that is very important. It kind of gets left out sometimes. Is that something you see as well?
I'd say more recently, it's becoming more and more of a topic. So there's now Safety Week that happens every fall. I think it's this year will be the first time that there's actually an inclusion week as part of kind of an industry effort from a number of leading companies trying to bring inclusivity to the forefront of how companies are acting and how they're talking about these challenges. So it definitely still is a challenge, but I think it is something that companies are thinking about at the board level, at the executive level, and really making sure that they're thinking strategically about how they address the labor challenges, but also do that in a way where they are representing the broader population.
Let's talk about the last year and a half, because there was this pause, a lot of construction stopped, and then this year it seems like we're just seeing starts kind of go crazy on both home building and commercial. A lot of companies seem to be making up for lost time. Is that what you're seeing from your side of things?
It's definitely what we're seeing. What we've heard from our customers is often their project portfolio mix has been changed a little bit. So maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, they were planning to build more hotels, for example, and that's now being transitioned to data warehouses or shipping facilities and centers, so distribution centers. So I think the type of project is changing, but the volume still continues to be quite strong. And outside of, really the first month of the pandemic, when there was a little bit of a pause, our construction company clients have really continued to build throughout the last year and a half.
Have you heard anything about safety concerns on site with the rise of the Delta variant and things like that?
We haven't been hearing a ton. I think earlier on, there was more talk around safety. That was before vaccinations were widely available. So since in the past little while, we haven't heard really a ton that's construction specific around Delta variant. We were actually both on site in Chicago a couple weeks ago. So I'm sure there's lots of precautions, and I'm sure it is something that people are talking about, but just not a conversation that we've necessarily been part of.
So what about remote management? We saw this in all aspects of real estate, really during the pandemic. Construction teams a little different than offices, but they have to stay connected to people who might be working remotely. How is that working out right now?
So we all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, saw our companies really in, future customers all of a sudden need to shift to being able to work from their home. So any use of, whiteboards in the office or static Excel spreadsheets all of a sudden became quite difficult to use. So we did really see this acceleration when it comes to digital transformation within the industry. And that's a trend we were seeing regardless, but I do think it really was a forcing function for the industry to let go of those final, more manual processes that were being leveraged in the office and really accommodate a remote workforce. And even now, there's a few construction companies I was talking to the other week when we were at a conference, and they were saying that their office team has no plans to return to the office. So, very similar to the way technology companies are thinking and reacting, but, really this path to a much more remote and flexible work style for the office teams. And we think technology can definitely really just help support those new workflows from abroad.
What is your data showing you about types of construction jobs that might be more in demand going forward?
We don't actually have like a rolled up report of the specific types, but just anecdotally from our clients, we're hearing lots about distribution centers, data warehouse centers. Those seem to definitely be sort of the main areas of focus. There definitely does continue to be residential development, of course, high rises and everything as well. But those are some of the main areas that we're hearing about at a high level.
What are you seeing as far as individual construction workers leveling up, becoming managers, things like that? Do you see that there's paths of leadership that are challenging for people to sort of gradually move up inside the site itself?
We've actually been talking a lot about that recently because with us coming from more of the technology sector, there's tons of information available. There's podcasts and there's blog articles and so many different things where you could Google very quickly how to be the best marketing executive and find all sorts of information that would be helpful. And it's much more difficult, we find, in the construction world to find that similar type of content. So it's actually something that our team has started to work on, interviewing different people, understanding how did you become a project coordinator and then a project manager, and how did you end up becoming an executive within your company? What did that path look like? How can we help others understand what that career trajectory looks like? It's just something it seems to be a little bit less spoken of. So I don't think it's a lack of opportunities. I think it's sometimes just a little bit harder to understand if you're not really in it yet to understand what that path would look like. But there's definitely tons of leadership opportunities, especially with all of the technology that companies are now leveraging. I think it opens up even more opportunities to lead within a company.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that leads to recruiting too, because if a construction worker thinks that all they're going to be doing is the same thing over and over, that's maybe not as much of an incentive. But once you show those career paths inside construction, that becomes more attractive for people.
Yeah, and there's so many different areas that you can move into as well. So I think it's sometimes hard we've heard this from people when you're first starting out to understand all the different areas that you can go into. And more companies are now doing rotational programs to help young people who are just coming into the workforce understand this is what estimating looks like. This is what working on site looks like. This is what it looks like to work in virtual design and construction and to understand BIM. And so doing a couple months in each of those areas and then being able to understand which of those areas you'd want to spend more of your focus on, I think has been something that lots of people have told us was fundamental for them.
I love that. It's kind of like doing a residency in medical school or something like that and finding your specialty.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about construction labor costs. We keep hearing about that on the investing side. We know developers are feeling that pinch. How does Bridgit help with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, there's a massive demand for labor in the industry, and that can definitely be one of the factors that causes the cost to also go up, of course. So, step one from our perspective is to help construction companies manage their existing workforce as effectively as possible. When all of that workforce data lived in spreadsheets, it was often very difficult to understand what the allocation was of all those people. Was everyone actually staffed to a project? And upon implementation with some of our larger accounts, we would hear the reactions, oh, I didn't realize I had 10 people that were on the bench not out assigned to projects, which is completely understandable given just the sheer size of the workforces. It's easy to lose track of individuals when there isn't, a simple way to keep informed on where everyone is. So I think, step one is just really understanding who you have today, what their skill set is, and are they actually already placed on a project? And then the second thing we've really started to do is help with forecasting. So really understanding the pursuits that they're going after, what is the workforce that will be required for those pursuits, and allowing them to do some scenario planning. If we win these 5 projects or we lose these 10 projects, how does that impact how many people we need? So it's not as reactive that, oh, we have 2 weeks to hire 5 project managers. They have months in advance to understand how their workforce needs may be changing. And that can be really helpful from a recruitment standpoint, just to have that additional time factored in.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like Bridgit is part of this overall movement in construction to understand construction on a larger basis, to create this sort of platform. I know that integrations are something that you guys are working on. You've got integrations with Procore and Autodesk. How do those work?
Yeah, so we have integrations with both of them. The Procore one, we actually just launched an even more robust integration with them. So you can have two-way data syncing from our platform to Procore and back to Bench. So we're seeing customers pull in all sorts of different data points around their projects, around the number of resources that may have been identified, but needing to actually place them and allocate them would happen in our tool. And then similar to Autodesk, they have a number of different solutions that have all been integrated through their build platform. And that's what we're integrated with. So pulling in key project information, when dates change, making sure that's getting updated in our platform. Really anything to help minimize the amount of manual data entry required by the end user to keep everything just really simple and easy to use.
So Autodesk has also been an investor in Bridgit. How has that collaboration been, and what's it like working with Autodesk?
It's been awesome. They have such an amazing team to work with. We were actually able to just recently meet some of their team members in person at a conference. So we've been, chatting with them on video calls for a long time, but it was great to meet them in person. And I think they just have such a broad solution, and most of our customers are also Autodesk customers. So being able to work a little bit more closely with them on that integration, making sure that we can really be complementary to their overall platform has been a really positive experience, and we hope drives value for our customer base as well.
Fantastic. So where do you see Bridgit headed over the next 5 years?
So we're really excited about the direction that we're moving in. We started by building our platform, Bridgit Bench, which is a workforce planning tool. And that was really the starting point. I think it's really exciting for us to be at the center of all of the people information and project information that companies are tracking. And we see so many opportunities to expand from there and really focus on people. How are companies thinking about their talent? How are companies thinking about developing their talent, recruiting new talent, retaining those people and developing them? So we think there's lots of different product opportunities that all focus around the people that are very much greenfield opportunities in the construction world today. And so we see lots of product development in our future so we can continue to build more broadly. So workforce planning was a great wedge, I think, for us into the industry, but it's by no means the final end result.
Interesting. Does recruiting and that sort of thing play a part in potentially in your future?
Yeah, we definitely are, focused everything around people. So what are those, workflows that have potentially been overlooked? Given how project-based the industry is, I think a lot of the project workflows have now been they've had software built to help ease those processes, but we're really all focused on the people and how can we help, with performance management or resource allocation or any of these things that really rely back on the workforce within the industry.
I love that. All right. Well, Mallorie and Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. Reminder for everyone, you can learn more at gobridgit.com. Stay well and stay invested.